Hello, in this video tutorial, we'll look at the Balance Recipes module. When you first open up Pet Diet Designer, you're presented with a blank screen. You can access all the modules across the top of the screen on the ribbon or at the sidebar. In order to balance a recipe, first we've got to take a look at all the recipes. So we open up the Recipes module. Now here we have a list of all the recipes for all of your pets. So one good thing that you can do is filter out some of these recipes. For instance, all chicken recipes or eggs or beef recipes, this type of thing, or you could just show them all. Now another way to get the recipes, if you have more than one pet, is to filter out by pet. So on the name, you'll see this little filter icon. Just press that and we're going to choose Spot. So what this does is it gives us all of Spot's recipes, and we see we have a few in here. So hopefully over time you'll have a lot of recipes and you'll be able to organize them properly for easy access. So right now we're going to take a look at turkey and rice. Um, we could either edit this recipe, so we could change some of this information here. There's actually more information. We'll look at that in another video. Or we can just go directly to the balance recipe button. So let's click that. Now this just might take a moment to load because there's quite a lot of information that has to get calculated. Um, okay, so we've got this recipe for Spot. Now uh, there's you can see that there's all sorts of graphs. Let's give us a little bit more room. So we'll move the module sidebar over to the side. Okay, so we have nutrient summary. We've got our ratios here. We've got three different ratios. This is the main area that we work with. It's called the ingredient list. We have our macronutrients pie graph. This is our total protein and total fat. And over here at the right side, we've got detailed nutrient information. For proteins, you've got all the amino acids, and here you can see exactly what's happening. Let's take a look at the fats. For this nutrient, we've got our EPA and DHA. So you could see here that that the that our pet for the recommended allowance needs 0.116 grams of EPA plus DHA combined, and our recipe actually has zero point 0.9. So we're grams. So we're well over what we've got. And you can visually see what's happening here. Of course, you can get rid of some of these lines if they're too close or if they're overlapping the minimum requirement. So we can just see what the recommended allowance is. There you go. And we've got all these different graphs here. And this will, if you put the cursor over each bar, you'll get this little information panel that shows you exactly what you're doing. But we find that the easiest thing to use really is over here at the nutrient summary. And this is based on a percentage of, here you can see it says recipe, this current recipe, the recommended allowance. So we could change this to up at the top ribbon. So if you choose the minimum requirement radio button, then it's going to change all these things here to minimum requirement. So you'll notice that this will change. So the numbers should get higher because now we have a greater amount of nutrients for what we want. Usually the minimum requirement is less. So if I change it back, we'll take a look at this. You'll see that the numbers are a little bit lower. I'd like to leave it at the recommended allowance. You can see here current recipe recommended allowance. And if we scroll down, we see that all of these bars are green and they're all over 100%, which means that that's what gives them the green. So let's see what happens if we get rid of one of these ingredients. And the beautiful thing about this is that you can play around with it and you can just say, okay, let's see what would happen if I just got rid of this. This is the ground turkey. We've got 260 grams of it. So if you got rid of this, you'll see that some of these bars turn yellow. The zinc, vitamin D, and the choline. And you may have noticed that this needle here jumped from the green area, and now it's over in the red area. So let's put that back and you'll see. So this is pretty good because you could take you can search for other ingredients through the search panel, and then you can load them up by just pressing the plus button. It'll load it up here into the ingredient list, and then you can dynamically play with it and see whether or not you want that particular ingredient. So let's see what happens when we get rid of this. Let's see what happens when we get rid of that, the liver. So let's put this back and just get rid of the liver. So by getting rid of the liver, we've got even more. We've got the copper, zinc's down, vitamin B5, vitamin B12, and the choline are all lower than what we would want. The CAP ratio seems to be fine. It's right at the edge. So it's important to have organ meat in your recipe. A lot of the recipes we find it's difficult to balance without putting some organ meat in. Of course, you could add supplements. So if you had a vitamin supplement or and a mineral supplement, that type of thing, you might that might work. But if you're trying to use just food alone, or mostly food alone, organ meat usually works well with these recipes. But of course, there's millions of variations. You can have all sorts of different ingredients for a recipe, and we're hoping that you can discover something that works well for you. Now, another thing with the ingredient list is let's see what happens when we change this. This is how you change the amount. So with starting at 260, we're gonna change it to 450 and press enter. And so when you press enter, now everything gets recalculated, and you'll see that, you know, anyway, this is a complete and balanced meal, but if we were to put it down to 120, for instance, we'll see that that's not enough. So what we'd like to do is just keep putting up the amount until we've got the right thing. So I believe it was 260, and uh, the, another thing that you have to realize is when we had it down to 130, or let's say 160, and that's not enough. Let's try 200. Okay, so we've got it down to 200, and all the bars on the left are green. So and everything, our ratios are all in the needles in the green area. So it looks like this is a balanced and complete recipe. The problem is that it's not, because if you look here on the calorie targets, our daily requirement for our pet is 1,056 calories. But this recipe total is only 945, so we're missing 110 calories. Now, of course, you could feed that recipe, but over time, since you're missing 110, over time, if you kept feeding that, your pet might lose some weight. So what we were trying to do before is get it as close as possible to to the daily target. If you're making only one recipe, of course, on another video, I'll show you how to balance two or more recipes per day. And then later on during the beta, we'll introduce our our scratch pad module, which will let you balance multiple recipes over not only a day but many days. Okay, so we're going to put this back down to 260, or back up to 260, and you'll notice that we're over 11 calories, which is really not that much. So it's kind of close. So we're going to leave that. We'll save it. You should get a little message here if it's saved. If it's not, it'll say fail. Okay, and that's basically it for the balanced recipes. So thanks a lot.